Welcome, my beautiful people. Welcome to our channel and welcome to part 3 of our exciting series about the hat person, hat man, and shadow people. And we have the lovely Jennifer Doran, whose information is in the description box below, channeling my lovely son, Eric. I love you, Eric.
Says I love you. Happy to be here. This is an interesting topic. He said it's a good one.
And of course, we're not going to channel these entities directly because it's just not safe. Okay, and it's still a little creepy. Yes. All right, so we're ready to go. We got some questions from the community. Eric, Jennifer, you ready to rock and roll?
Yep, we're ready.
All right. Here we go. This is to the Hat Man. What were you in your previous incarnation, if that was true, and why did you stay stuck here on Earth?
So, and of course, what Erik is saying is that this is a being that was actually here on Earth, living a life at one point, and the reason that he stayed on Earth, so Erik said there's a few reasons. One of the reasons is, as humans, we need stuff like this. We need this part of the experience here to have the good and the bad, the evil and the divine all happening here. And so that's part of it. But also this is the soul is like a very low vibration.
Yeah.
So it just sort of got stuck here. It doesn't have the ability to leave, isn't ready to go. Whatever. There's this feeling of stuck or stubbornness or both.
Okay. Did he have a haberdashery? Why does he wear a hat? Maybe it's from the 1800s.
The time period. Yeah. Erik says the time period. And then there's also like, so Erik is saying, like, with stuff like this, it takes on a life of its own. So the Hat Man, the Mothman, which I'm not sure if you've done a video, but it's like similar. There's this similar energy where, when people start seeing it and the stories get told, and it creates like a life force that makes it bigger.
That's what you said in one of the parts 1 and 2. So you guys check out parts 1 and 2 if you have not. Okay. Yeah. So that's really fascinating. So was the Hat Man from what, England or Germany or US or?
So, oh boy, my geography,
Oh yeah.
So somewhere in Europe.
Okay.
Somewhere in Europe. Yes.
That's good enough. So why did they get stuck on Earth? Did they do some horrible crime or?
So part of it, is like, again, there's sometimes there's like contracts where like, okay, no, you're going to stay there for a while, like ghosts and stuff. Sometimes it's in the contract that they're just going to stay for a bit.
Right.
So there was like a little bit of that, but Erik is actually saying that there was so much fear at the end of the life there because this was not a great person. And so much fear about what would happen when death came. Am I going to go to hell? Or so there's like this stubbornness to stay here, but it also feels like it was going to happen, but maybe not for the extent of time it's been.
Okay.
So that's like moves into free will is kind of what Erik is saying, which we always think of free will as being a human thing, he said, but we have free will in spirit. We have free will over here. We have free will when we leave the body. Sometimes, sometimes we can't. Sometimes we're absolutely, no, you're not staying, you're coming. So, but free will has part to do with this, and absolute fear over hell, basically.
Ooh. Did he die of natural causes or murdered or hung?
No, it's illness. This very, very sick. So it's like Erik is saying, it's kind of a longer drawn out death. So like this soul knows death is coming.
Was he old?
No, like, well, I mean, maybe for the time period, but mid 40s, maybe.
Okay. All right. I had a friend. Oh yeah. One thing I don't want to forget. Will he ever cross over? Or
yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Erik says any of the souls that are stuck here or have chosen to stay here will eventually cross into the light.
Okay, Erik, when do you see? I know there's no time, but if you look at time, linear time here, and in the human perspective, when do you think he's going to cross?
He says it could be another couple 100 years.
Oh,
Easily.
wow. Okay, we could play with him for a while. Okay. I had a friend whose mom introduced a very old Ouija board to her and me. Didn't know what this was. To a friend whose mom. Okay. That night, there was a man in a tall hat in all black sitting on my rocking chair. I was terrified, I bet. I crept along my wall that my bed was next to and turned on the light. Shadow Man, Hat Man, was gone, but I turned the lights off again, and there he was, sitting in that chair. I pulled the covers over my head and trembled back to sleep. Who the heck was that? Patty Zalinska.
That was the Hat Man.
Oh,
so here's the thing about Ouija boards.
Mm.
So there is something and Catholics refer to it as discernment of spirit. Okay, so there are some people who can tell whether energy that they're connecting to is from the light or not from the light. Okay.
Okay.
I have that. I can tell the difference. I don't connect to the dark. I would never use a Ouija board ever. Because they're too tricky through the board like that. Yeah. So I don't play with Ouija boards, please.
Yeah. Even if you say a prayer of intent, like Erik's board.
This is different. That's different.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Okay. So your intent when you created that board, the intention behind the board, the work that Erik does.
Yeah.
It's completely different. At Ouija boards, it's too open. You don't know whose hands it's been in, the intent, especially when you play with an old one. It's not, they were created. You don't know
who's handled it.
Yes. And they were created for kind of the darkness. Okay. The e-board created for light.
Oh,
different.
Love it. All right. So what was the purpose of this? Obviously, he came through a portal created by the Ouija board. Why did he sit in her rocking chair?
To scare the crap out of her.
Okay. Feeds off the fear.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
What is the purpose of shadow people in general in our spiritual evolution?
So this is, Erik said, it's a tricky one because there are a lot of times souls from the other side, when they come to visit, will look like a silhouette. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I've experienced this personally myself. When I wake up and there's somebody standing in my room as a silhouette, and it scares me because I've said this before. I'm like, there's this strange adult in my bedroom, and I feel like something's about to happen to me.
Yeah.
And then once I wake up, I realize, okay, no, wait, that wasn't anything negative. But for humans, anything that kind of gives us fear, we automatically think is evil or negative.
Yeah. And
so
not
sometimes,
necessarily so.
Right. Sometimes what we're calling shadow people are just souls that are coming from the other side to visit us. But sometimes they're not strong enough to show up, with in color. So it's this silhouette. So Erik wants to be clear that shadow people and sometimes silhouettes from spirit are not the same thing. Okay. Shadow people, this is more like the low vibration, the like attachments, the like that kind of thing. This is the truly shadow people energy.
Okay.
Ghosts can be thought of also as shadow people sometimes too, when they're not necessarily.
There's Casper the Friendly Ghost, and there's others.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so in accordance with the questions part about our spiritual evolution, their purpose, I feel like one thing is they're here to teach us as a collective to live life in love, not fear. We have to have that fear.
Yes.
To understand that.
I love when you are channeling information too, which I don't know if you know this, it happens a lot, that you're saying stuff that Erik is saying at the same time, which is just kind of cool. So so part of the shadow people and the attachments, and this is so that we can look and say, oh no, like these things are happening, and you see probably a lot with the scalar work that you do, people getting attachments and
Yeah.
all this stuff. And the idea that they're seeking help for it leads them into the light. Okay. Leads them into higher vibration living, more spiritual living, more peace, more joy. So without them, some people might not get that place.
And we might
So
not
yes,
know that there's something in other dimensions. It's more than what the senses can perceive, or they can be measured with an instrument. All right, this is from Clara Avila. I see the shadow man in my home ever since she's lived in her house, and he grabbed my leg the other day. Will he hurt me?
So
same thing happened to my sister. A shadow person pulled on her foot.
Yeah, so what Erik is saying about that is that there's a few things that you can do. I don't like being touched even by spirit from the light. I don't enjoy it, especially like when I'm in bed. So I say, like when I'm in bed, please don't touch me. You can try that if you're being touched by something, because again, you might not know, is it a shadow person? Is it a ghost? Is it a loved one from the other side? So it's just like, okay, hey, when I'm in bed, maybe don't tap me or touch me or pull my leg. As far as hurting her, the person who asked this question, Erik said, well, if it's scaring you and disrupting your sleep and making you nervous, that's causing harm. As far as like physically assaulting you, no, but he said this is definitely falls more into like the earthbound ghost energy. If you haven't tried to clear this out, try to clear it, try to get rid of it. Erik's making me feel like it's not like the best energy to have around.
Okay. All right, we can do that for you if you with scalar energy, the main service. Okay, can we please do NPC? I've heard of this. Non-player characters. There's thinking that they have no soul. Clones. Some say 30%, some say 70% of the population is made up of NPC. Dolores Cannon spoke about them. Do they really exist?
So what Erik is saying is that every being has a soul. There's something. He's actually trying to make a connection between residual energy and what they're associating with the non. So sometimes, like a place that has a haunting, so to speak, it can just be residual energy. Like this horrific thing just keeps playing over and over. And if you're there and you're sensitive, you might see something happening, or you might see beings, but they're not actually ghosts or earthbound. You're actually just seeing residual energy playing out. And he's making more of a connection between that and there not being a soul attached to that thing, because it's residual energy. But any being that's walked the earth before, or or other planets, there's a soul connected.
It's almost like this person is saying that they're in the population, other humans that really don't have a soul.
Okay.
Is that true?
No, Erik said no. No.
So these questions don't matter then. Who created them? Do they get adverse effects from the vaccine? Can they have children?
Yeah, no, Erik is saying that's not, there's something off there. There's definitely extraterrestrials walking around.
Yeah.
Like us, like as humans, but there's still a soul attached to that. This would be more like cyborg type stuff, like science type stuff.
Okay.
Erik says no to this.
Okay. Why does Hat Man appear to only to certain people?
So what Erik's saying is that there has to be like a way in. Okay, so there has to be some fear around some of this stuff, or like using a Ouija board or calling to him. You have to give him an avenue, a way to get in. So protecting yourself and surrounding yourself with white light and saging and stuff can help to kind of mitigate any of that kind of stuff. Although, other than scaring people, at least in more recent years, he hasn't caused any harm. Erik said he hasn't hurt anybody recently, just scaring the absolute bejesus out of people.
But does he also just want to observe other
No,
beings?
the intent is fear. There
Okay.
is like the low vibration energies and stuff, they do kind of feed on the fear sometimes, which I guess you could say is hurting, but physical hurt,
Right.
which he did in lifetime, cause a lot of physical pain.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so I guess he probably appears more to people who are at a very low vibrational state, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Depressed, been through trauma,
Yep.
addiction,
Yes.
things like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Or just fear, just fear in general, any kind of fear, or
Right.
playing with dark energies that you don't really know. This is also
Mm.
another way, even if you don't seem afraid at first, that's the invitation. Erik's making a joke like a vampire, but gotta sometimes invite him in, but he's
Ugh,
just
no,
being
thank you.
silly.
No, I mean, we also talked about how the children often see them, and that's because their energy is so open that it's easy
Yes.
to get
Yes.
into their environment. Okay.
Yeah, and plus, like with children, sometimes that fear is there too. It scares
The
kids.
boogeyman, yeah.
Yeah, yes. Yes. Although Erik says a lot of times children are seeing a spirit guides. And
Okay.
and it still scares them. And that's usually when like as humans, when we sort of disconnect from spirit is
Mm.
when it starts to scare us. Because as babies and toddlers, it doesn't scare us. But at some point we start to realize, wait a second, that's not really a person standing right there. That's
Mhm.
something else happening. That's
Yeah,
when the boogeyman and the monsters come in.
that's a shame. All right, next question. I saw the Hat Man in a dream when I was on the verge of committing suicide before I'd ever even heard of him. The amount of fear made me drop to the floor and tremble. Why did I dream of him that night? And what did he want? Her name is Serena.
So actually, this kind of makes sense to me what Erik is saying. It's like sometimes when somebody's like in shock or like hysterical, they used to smack them
Oh,
to like snap her out of this. So it created this, so she was, suicidal or whatever. And then this thing happened and there was so much fear that it sort of snapped her out of it. So it was actually in this instance sent to actually help.
was it sent by Divine or was it actually the Hat Man?
It was sent by divine. So there apparently must be some sort of negotiations or something.
Oh, okay.
Because it was like that sort of like scare the shit out of
Mm.
her to snap her out of this.
Okay, was it actually the Hat Man that was sent, or was it like the Divine created the image of the Hat Man?
Yeah, that feels more right. What Erik is saying is it
Okay.
wasn't actually him. It was something to get the connection to it though, so that she would research it and find out suicide was not in her chart this time. And
Good.
this person was very, very close to actually leaving.
All right, Erik, have you ever met the Hat Man?
No.
Could you meet him if you wanted to? Or would you have a
Um,
combo with him?
he says he could,
But why?
but yeah, sort of. But he can access all the information that he needs, is what he's saying.
Okay.
And it's like as much as Erik does like come here, it's really more for the humans, like he's comes here for. And the souls that are already on the other side already crossed over.
Okay.
Um,
What's the worst thing that you have come into contact with on the other side? Demons, other shadow people?
yeah, so he's saying like when the souls are coming back, like when they've been stuck here a long time, or the low vibration when they come back, he said there's actually sometimes where there is moments of, which he's mentioned before, like the disorientation or needing some time. And sometimes when those souls have been here for so long, it can be a little bit traumatic at first, but it's so quick that it's uh, resolved, is how
Okay.
he's putting it. Um, and so he doesn't like actually like, I guess by the time demons get there, so to speak, they're more neutral, more neutralized
Okay.
is kind of what he's saying. Like, so any of that sort of stuff would be observing from there here. They're not like just demons running around wreaking havoc over
Okay.
there. Is sort of how he's putting it.
I gotcha. That makes sense. Next question. I've seen shadow people, but only when I was in a dark point in my life, never after that. Do they only appear when a person is in a vulnerable negative space? We already answered that. That's true, right?
Well, that particular person, Erik said, those are spirit guides that are just
Oh,
showing up as silhouettes to help you through
okay.
that. So this is where that confusion of the shadow people, what are actually
Yeah.
shadow people and what are actually spirit guides that are showing up in silhouette form. And that's what's happening in that instance.
Okay. Next question. I've heard shadow people can abduct you and take you to another dimension. Is that true?
Erik says this is more like confusion with extraterrestrial
I figured
abduction.
that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
To the mothership.
Yes.
All right. So I don't. They can't really have that much physical power. I don't think.
No, it's more like emotional and mental power that they can have over us. So you again, you know from doing the Atlanta scalar work, when somebody has a lot of stuff on them, it can control their life, you know, and when there's a lot of entities, a lot of negative energies, it can absolutely control a person. That's really more what the low vibration shadow people that's what they're looking for. They're not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How can we protect ourselves from them and keep them out of our home?
So keeping your mental health in good shape is big. Addiction, keeping, addiction or working through addiction if you're struggling with it. Keeping your vibration high. Anything, these kind of beings don't like high vibration souls. They can't really have access to them. So the higher you can keep your vibration, the less you're going to have struggles with low vibration stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And the energy repair, protection, and enhancement service with Atlanta Scalar, that really it shields the souls, getting rid of negative energy, getting rid of shadow people, whatever, everything. So that's something to consider too. Next question. Where do all the recently discovered cryptids, like I guess Sasquatch and the Loch Ness Monster, come from? Also, the people that go missing in national parks, is it government centered or otherwise?
So there's a lot there, is what Erik is saying. Some of these beings are coming from other planets, like through portals. There's so much that can come in and out in the water, in the oceans and in the lakes. So the Loch Ness Monster, some of that is just really coming in and out from other planets. Same with Bigfoot. He showed me before, Bigfoot can kind of come through portals from
dimensions. Yeah.
Yep. So there's that, and then of course the people going missing in the national parks. Sometimes it's animals. Sometimes they disappear themselves. Sometimes, yes, it could be government or murder. There's all kinds of things that can go with that. Sometimes.
Why would the government make them go missing? What do they do with the people?
So, sometimes when we do have the souls that are down here that are maybe a bit more extraterrestrial, they'll just go back to where they came from. So sometimes when people are just gone, it can be that they
went home.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I was lying in bed with my headphones on one night. Something told me to open my eyes. This is Heidi Cooper saying this. Upon opening them, I saw a dark silhouette of a man with a rugged farmer's type hat on. He was standing over me to the left side of my bed. I was so startled that I instinctively closed my eyes and threw my headphones from my head. When I opened my eyes again, he was gone. Several days later, my sister suddenly passed away. My family, of course, is still devastated. Was the man with the hat trying to forewarn me of this tragic event with my sister? I've always felt that there was some sort of connection somehow.
He was a spirit guide that was there to help assist with her grief. And that's, when we lose somebody, we have a particular spirit guide that will come in and help us with our grief. So this obviously the spirit guide and spirit knew beforehand that this was going to happen, so that spirit guide showed up. So this was not a shadow person. This was a spirit guide there to assist with the
I
grief.
figured, but it didn't help. Just terrified her. And why?
Yeah, it's just, I've had the experience myself, terrified, because it really is, because we're human and we wake up and there is a human in our room we don't recognize, at least at first, until we realize, okay, wait, that wasn't human. What was going on? And as humans, anything that scares us, we tend to think is bad.
Yeah, that's right. So he did not complete his mission then. So why did he appear to her before the sister's death?
So he still was there to assist in moving through the grief.
Yeah.
So sometimes spirit does not know what's going to scare us. They don't always know something is going to scare the absolute crap out of us.
Yeah.
So this was unintentional, that the fear happened. And we have, if we could see, as humans, if we could see everything that was actually going on around us as far as spirit goes, there's so much more going on spirit wise than human. Every once in a while, some of us get to see past it to a little bit of something. And unfortunately, it usually scares most of us.
It's like the Casper the Friendly Ghost cartoons.
Yes.
The guys that hi to the cat, whatever.
Yes. Yep. Okay. That's all this was.
Okay. My friend used to see and hear the shadow people. He killed himself in 2015. He said they talked to him through his television. So he wouldn't use his TV or computer. He drank heavily to sleep, then killed himself. It was terrible to watch him literally fall apart. So, I mean, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was he so depressed that shadow people came to him, or was it auditory and visual hallucinations from a mental illness? It could be all sorts of things here.
So what Erik says in regards to this is there was mental health to start with.
Yeah.
So there was some mental health, addiction, perhaps some schizophrenia. All of those things do make us more vulnerable to that stuff. It does. There's a lot of times there's a really thin line between like all the spirit stuff happening and mental health stuff. They can look very similar. It's why it's really important to keep your mental health. Like if you have mental health struggles, to do everything you can to assist that, so that you don't have that bleed through of the negative entities, and then you're starting to see them, and it's just it can really go downhill quickly.
Well, the voices coming from the TV or computer, television, was that just auditory hallucinations, or were shadow people, or maybe guides trying to talk to him?
Some of this was auditory hallucinations for this particular person.
That's very typical of schizophrenia.
Yep. And so but then some of this was also the seeing the shadow people and hearing the shadow people. That's where the line gets very hard to tell what is actually happening and what is not. And at this point with this particular person, Erik said the guides weren't able to get through because then we had all the alcohol involved too. But that's the thing, when you're hearing spirit or ghost or shadow people, the spirit is never going to be mean, insulting, harmful, telling you to hurt yourself or hurt others. That's going to be either auditory hallucinations or low vibrations trying to feed off of your fear and stuff. Spirit is never going to make us feel bad about ourselves or anything like that,
or tell us to do awful things.
Right.
Well, I mean, I figured this is probably like negative entities, really, because I didn't think shadow people can communicate except through emotion. I mean, they can't give, they can.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And that's what it's like, if they're still appearing like silhouettes and looking like shadows. That's why the term shadow people is very misleading. It really is, because there's just so much other stuff that just shows up as a silhouette, and we just think shadow people, it's all shadow people, when it's not.
Okay. Last question. I have seen shadow people a lot. I even have been waking up by the shadow, and one will be at the foot of my bed. First of all, I don't know who this is, but in this case, are they shadow people, or are they guides, or just other ones?
Yeah. So
Oh, and members
again,
of my family see them as well. Okay.
yeah, in this instance, like when you see somebody standing at the foot of your bed, yes, it might scare you, but that's also very protective, watching over you
Whoa.
kind of
Yeah.
energy. So, what I would say for people to do is like in the moment, if you're scared, okay, take a couple deep breaths and then ask, like, who are you? Like, just put it out there and see if something pops in. Okay, well, I asked that question and I felt like it was my great grandmother, even though I didn't know her. Or ask yourself, like, am I really afraid? Like, am I really scared? You have to sometimes go deeper and be like, okay, like one time I woke up and it was a shadow person, but I could tell it was an older woman just by the shape of her and her hair. And
Mm.
she was standing I opened my eyes and she was right at the side of my bed, and it scared me because I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
But once I calmed down, I realized, okay, wait a second. She wasn't hurting me. She wasn't touching me. I was fine. Like, what's going on here? This is something else that's happening. So for people who are seeing this, once you get through the initial fear of it, does it actually feel negative, or could it be spirit guide? And
Well, a
ask in
loved
your
one.
head, is this a spirit guide, or is this, something I need to clear out and get rid of?
Or is it a deceased loved one? If it is, who is it?
Yeah, yes, exactly. And if you're somebody who has this experience a lot, like I did for a while, I just told him, I said, once I realized it wasn't negative
Yeah.
and it was spirit guides, I said, hey, like, I appreciate that you're here and that you're watching over me or helping me or whatever, but I don't like seeing you. So if you could block me from being able to see you or shield
Yeah.
yourself better so I don't see you. Because again, sometimes they don't know. They
Yeah.
don't always know that you're going to open your eyes and be able to see them. But if you tell them, like, hey, I'm able to see you sometimes and I don't like it, they can shield us a little bit better,
Okay.
especially if it's a positive being.
Yeah. So she said that members of her family also see them. So she wants to know, or he maybe, do they follow family bloodlines?
So if you're asking, do shadow people follow family
Yeah, I think that's
bloodlines?
what this person's saying.
Erik is saying, yes, that there are some families, some bloodlines who are more connected to them.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes that's just done so that you have assistance and like you have other people in your family that are experiencing it too. So you can
They
support
support
each other
you.
through it.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
But in her case or his case, are they shadow people?
Um, in
Or
this
do you need a
case,
name?
yeah, in this case, Eric's saying it's more spirit guide energy, but this particular family has a knack for seeing earthbounds, not necessarily shadow people, ghosts. So that
Yeah.
whoever this family is actually pretty gifted as far as seeing
Yeah, and
stuff. So
that
they're probably
that
catching all
gift,
of it at some
yeah,
point.
gifts do run in family lines too.
Yes. Yep.
So, all right, that's it. Erik, do you want to say anything else about the Hat Man or shadow people before we close?
So what he says is, if you're watching this and freaked out by it, just surround yourself with the white light of the Holy Spirit. Don't feed the fear of it. Okay. You don't want to manifest calling any of this to you, because
Right.
you really can. Like if you,
Yeah.
if you
Thought
keep
creates
thinking about
reality.
it, yep. Yep. So just don't freak out too much. Don't feed into the fear, and just protect yourself. And but ultimately, these things are not going to physically hurt you, okay? But they can get you so down that you might cause some physical pain for yourself. So if you're experiencing something like this, reach out for help. At
Yeah,
least through this avenue, people here will understand,
absolutely.
is what
All
he's
right.
saying.
Thank you,
So,
Erik. I love you. Thank you,
he said,
Jennifer. I
love
love
you
you
too.
too. I love all of you guys out there. Be sure you connect with Jennifer by clicking on the link in the description box, and share, hit the notification button, and subscribe to this channel and also the Atlantis Scalar channel. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.